We're witnessing what may be one of the most consequential diplomatic crises since the end of the Cold War. President Donald Trump has dramatically escalated his pursuit of Greenland, the autonomous Danish territory in the Arctic, declaring that the United States will act whether they like it or not. And this isn't just rhetoric. The White House has explicitly confirmed that military force remains an option on the table. For those just tuning in, Trump's interest in Greenland isn't new. During his first term, he floated the idea of purchasing the island, only to be flatly rejected by both Denmark and Greenland itself. The proposal was widely dismissed as eccentric at the time. But what we're seeing now is fundamentally different in both tone and urgency. This isn't a casual real estate inquiry. It's a declared strategic imperative backed by the threat of military action. And given that Trump just ordered U.S. forces into Venezuela, where they successfully captured President Nicolas Maduro in an operation that stunned the international community, these threats must be taken seriously.
How much money are you thinking of giving people in Greenland to get them on board with a possible U.S.
I'm not talking about money for Greenland yet. I might talk about that. But right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not. Because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. I would like to make a deal, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way. And by the way, I'm a fan of Denmark too. I have to tell you, and they've been very nice to me. I'm a big fan, but the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. I'm sure we had lots of boats go there also, but we need that because if you take a look outside of Greenland right now, there are Russian destroyers, there are Chinese destroyers and bigger, there are Russian submarines all over the place. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland, and that's what they're going to do if we don't. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way. You defend ownership, you don't defend leases, and we'll have to defend Greenland. If we don't do it, China or Russia will. It's not going to happen. We are not going to have, and I like China, I like Russia, I love the people of China, I love the people of Russia. I get along very well with President Putin, but I'm very disappointed in him. I get along very well with President Xi. I'm going to go over to China in April, but I don't want them as a neighbor in Greenland. Not going to happen. And by the way, and NATO's got to understand that. I'm all for NATO. I saved NATO. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have a NATO right now. But we're not going to allow Russia or China to occupy Greenland, and that's what's going to happen if we don't.
So why Greenland? During a White House meeting with oil executives, Trump laid out his thinking in characteristically blunt terms. He argued that if the United States doesn't take control of Greenland, either Russia or China inevitably will, effectively making them America's neighbors and creating what he sees as an unacceptable strategic vulnerability. The administration's national security justification centers on several factors: Greenland's position controlling critical Arctic shipping routes, its vast deposits of rare earth minerals essential for advanced technology and defense systems, and its strategic value for deploying next-generation air defense systems against Russian hypersonic weapons. White House advisor Stephen Miller was even more direct, stating simply that we should have Greenland as part of the United States. But here's where this story takes a truly remarkable turn. In an unprecedented display of political unity, all 5 parties in Greenland's parliament, spanning the entire political spectrum from left to right, issued a joint statement. Their message couldn't have been clearer. We do not want to be Americans. We do not want to be Danes. We want to be Greenlanders. Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen stood alongside opposition leaders to condemn what they called American contempt and disrespect for their country and their right to self-determination. They've called an emergency parliamentary session to formulate a coordinated response. This is a population of 57,000 people, many of whom have long harbored dreams of full independence from Denmark, now facing pressure from the world's most powerful military to essentially surrender their sovereignty. The international response has been swift and alarming. Denmark and 7 major European NATO allies, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, Italy, Poland, Spain, and the Netherlands, issued a joint statement affirming that Greenland belongs to its people and that its territorial integrity must be respected. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen went further, warning in stark terms that an American takeover of Greenland would effectively end the NATO alliance as we know it. Think about what that means. NATO, the military alliance that has kept the peace in Europe for over 75 years, the cornerstone of Western security architecture, could collapse over an Arctic island. European leaders are reportedly holding emergency consultations about how to respond to what they're privately calling the gravest threat to the alliance in its history. And here's where things get truly complex and potentially catastrophic. Both the United States and Denmark are founding members of NATO. Under Article 5 of the NATO Treaty, an attack on one member is considered an attack on all. As Senator Chris Murphy pointed out, if the United States were to take military action against Greenland, NATO members would theoretically be obligated to defend Danish territory against American aggression. We could be looking at the unthinkable: American forces facing off against British, French, or German troops, NATO allies potentially in armed conflict with each other. It's a scenario that seemed impossible even a month ago, relegated to the realm of dystopian fiction. Yet here we are, with serious policymakers and military planners having to game out these possibilities. So what exactly is Trump planning? Reports suggest the administration is considering a range of approaches. The mildest would be attempting to negotiate a purchase, though Greenland and Denmark have already rejected this idea multiple times. More unconventionally, there are discussions about sending direct cash payments to individual Greenlanders to build support for joining the United States. When asked about specific payment amounts, Trump cryptically responded that he's not talking about money for Greenland yet. The word yet doing a lot of work in that sentence. And at the extreme end, there's the military option, which the White House has explicitly refused to rule out. It's worth stepping back to see how this fits into Trump's broader foreign policy vision. He's been open about his belief that the post-World War II international order is outdated and disadvantageous to American interests. He's questioned NATO's value repeatedly. He's praised strongman leaders who take what they want. The Venezuela operation showed he's willing to use military force in ways that break with decades of diplomatic norms. And now, Greenland. Some analysts see this as part of a pattern, a fundamental reimagining of American power projection and territorial ambition. What makes this particularly alarming is the speed at which norms are being shattered. Just a few years ago, territorial conquest by developed nations was considered a relic of history. The idea of NATO allies in conflict was unthinkable. The notion that the United States would threaten military action against a democratic ally's territory would have been dismissed as absurd. Yet all of these impossible things are suddenly on the table, being discussed seriously by governments around the world. So where does this leave us? With a president who describes Greenland as psychologically needed for success, a population of 57,000 people united in their desire to remain Greenlanders, European allies scrambling to formulate a response to an existential threat, and the entire post-war international order potentially hanging in the balance. Whatever happens next, the world that emerges from this crisis may look very different from the one we knew. This story is far from over.